Chapter 38 of the Tao Te Ching opens the second half of the text, the Te Ching, the Book of Virtue, and immediately does something unsettling. It lists virtue, benevolence, righteousness, and ritual as a descending staircase, each one a consolation prize for whatever was lost before it. Here is the original text in classical Chinese, rendered in pinyin for pronunciation. Shàng de bu de shi yu de. Xia de bu shi de shi wu de. Shàng de wu wei ye wu yi wei. Xia de wei zhai yu yi wei. Shan rain wei zhai wu yi wei. Shàng yi wei zhai yu yi wei. Shan lai wei zhai mo zhai yìng ze rāng bai rēng zhai. Bu shi dao hu de shi de hu rain shi rain hu yi shi hu lai. Fu lai ji zhōng xin zhai bao, lan zhai shu. Qián shi ji dao zhai ha yu zhai shi. Qi da zhang fu chu kai hu, bu ju kai bao. Chu kai shi, bu ju kai ha, guk bai xai. And in English, the person of highest virtue does not strive to possess virtue, and so truly has it. The person of lesser virtue cannot bear to lose it, and so does not truly have it. The highest virtue acts without agenda. Lesser virtue acts with intent. The highest benevolence acts without agenda. The highest righteousness acts with intent. The highest ritual acts, and when no one responds, it rolls up its sleeves and compels. Therefore, when the Tao is lost, virtue appears. When virtue is lost, benevolence appears. When benevolence is lost, righteousness appears. When righteousness is lost, ritual appears. Ritual is the thinning out of loyalty and trust, and the beginning of disorder. For knowledge is the flower of the Tao and the beginning of foolishness. The mature person dwells in the thick and does not live in the thin, dwells in the substance and does not live in the flower. So, leave that, take this. The chapter opens with a paradox that sounds like wordplay but isn't. The highest a word meaning virtue, power, integrity, the way something expresses its own nature, doesn't try to be da. And precisely because of that, it is. The person of lesser virtue clings to virtue as something they might lose, which is itself proof they've already lost the thread. This is not a mystical claim. Consider something closer to home. A person who is genuinely generous doesn't experience their generosity as a performance. They give and it's over. The person who keeps score, who tracks how charitable they've been, who needs the gift acknowledged, who feels virtuous, has introduced something between themselves and the action. A mirror. They're watching themselves. The chapter then maps out a falling order. Tao, the undivided source, gives way to the expressed virtue. Lose that, and you compensate with rēng, translated as benevolence or humaneness. A Confucian virtue means something like sincere care for others. Lose that, and you get yi, righteousness, which is more rule-bound, more about correct conduct. Lose that, and you arrive at lai, ritual, ceremony, the elaborate architecture of prescribed behavior. Notice what's happening at each step. We're not watching a society get worse. We're watching a society get more effortful. Each stage requires more deliberate action, more codification, more enforcement. The highest virtue needs no effort. Ritual needs a whole apparatus, forms, gestures, scripts, and when people don't comply, the text gives us the striking image. It rolls up its sleeves and drags them in. Force, the endpoint of formalized goodness, pushed far enough, is coercion. This isn't an argument against kindness or decency. It's an argument about where those things come from. When they arise spontaneously, when a person is honest because honesty is simply how they are, when care is given without the caregiver standing back to admire the care, they belong to the higher end of this spectrum. When they have to be encoded, enforced, and performed, you're at the lower end, which is still better than chaos, but it signals that something upstream has been lost. Then comes a more surprising target, foreknowledge. The clever advisor, the one who sees things coming, the strategic thinker who knows how to read every situation before it unfolds. The text calls this the flower of the Tao. Beautiful, yes, but only the surface. The husk of knowing without the root of it. Cleverness about the Tao is not the Tao. A map of a territory is not the territory. The chapter ends with a piece of practical direction. Dwell in the thick, not the thin. In the substance, not the flower. Leave that, take this. What this passage offers is a way to look honestly at your own motivations without self-punishment. Not, am I a good person, but, where is this coming from? Is there something upstream, something direct and unforced? Or am I running compensatory software, following rules designed to substitute for something I'm not sure I actually have? The same question applies outward. When an institution creates extensive policies for honesty, compliance manuals for integrity, mandatory trainings for ethical behavior, what does that multiplication of apparatus signal? Often it signals that the original condition those rules were meant to protect has thinned out. The rules are real and sometimes necessary, but they're a downstream measure, not the source. None of this means ritual, rules, and careful reasoning about right action are worthless. The chapter doesn't say tear it all down. It says, know where you are on the staircase, and if you can find the solid floor above it, go there. The image of the thick and the thin is worth sitting with. Thickness here suggests depth, rootedness, fullness, something that doesn't need to announce itself because it's simply present. Thinness is the layer of surface, decoration, the flower that looks like the fruit. The chapter closes where it began, with the simple gap between possessing something and trying to possess it. What you grip tightly enough to prove you have it, you've already dropped. Chapter 39 takes up what sustains the world from underneath. The next layer down, the same root,